Hello, Black Belts and Boardrooms audience. We have another wonderful week, another wonderful day. I've been thinking a lot about masters and leaders, how we are shaped today, you and I, with the way we have been taught, the way we have been mentored. So, Renard, I know we have a very special guest here today, and I am really excited. So, tell us about our guest.
Man, I am honored. I'm glad he was able to make the time with us. This is my coach, my black belt, the one who gave me my black belt, an awesome instructor, awesome professor, and also an awesome friend. Coach Michael Madeley has joined the show with us. Thank you, Coach, for joining today. We are so excited to have you.
Guys, I'm happy to be here, man. Looking forward to it.
Man, well, so we want to get right into it. If you could, just for our audience and for our listeners who don't know you, if you could give us your background, your origin story about you.
The martial arts, I guess, journey started in karate when I was about 8 years old in Hillsboro, Texas. Loved doing it. Had success, a lot of success doing it, but then we moved to Bridgeport, Texas, and I actually started training that under Daryl Sanders only for a few years. Then I started doing high school sports and stuff like that. And this was the early '90s, and then it was about that time, mid '90s actually, when the first UFC came out, and they were on VHS, and we just randomly rented one. And I saw that little skinny guy, Hoist Gracie, in there, and we were all like, he's gonna lose. That guy's a runt. That guy's 80 pounds bigger than him. We all were like, he's gonna lose bad, and he just kept winning, over and over and over. This was probably 1994 or something like that. And then I watched all of them, and he kept winning, for a significant amount of time. And then in 1998, I moved to Lubbock, Texas, to go to college at Texas Tech. And that next year, I met a guy named Clay Pittman, who was training under my instructor and driving back and forth to Dallas to train with Carlos Machado. That's a hike, by the way, to do that. And I immediately fell in love with jiu-jitsu. This is right at the end of 1999, I believe. Started doing jiu-jitsu, loved it, probably obsessed with it a little bit. And then it kind of got turned upside down. I don't know if I've never really talked about this, to be honest with you, with anybody. I had an amazing father. He was everything I ever wanted to be. And then he had an accident in my backyard, and it turned my life upside down, per se, or worse. And the only escape I could find from what was my real life was jujitsu. And having someone strangle you was preferable to dealing with that life. So I just dove into jujitsu. I was like, this is way better than everything else I'm dealing with at the moment. I became engrossed in it. I would say obsessed with it is what I would call it. And I stopped going to football games on Saturdays. And never stopped going out as much just so I could do jujitsu at Clay's. I loved it. And I won a few of the only tournaments in Texas at that time were Carlos Machado tournaments. It was Winter Wars. And then he had some other one, and they were very large. And I won a couple of those. And then my instructor, Clay Pittman, said, "You want to come with us to Brazil?" And I was like, for the summer. And I was like, okay. So I went down there and stayed the summer and trained at the Gracie Baja, the original one that my instructor and his brothers opened up with Carlos Gracie Jr. So this was like 2002 or three, and I was training as a purple belt in the Worlds. It was amazing. Golly, that was at that time, all the best jiu-jitsu guys seemed to go to that school. Like, guys, Roger Gracie was a brown belt at that time, beating all the black belts, by the way. So I got to see him before anybody knew who he was, really. I think this was the third year he won the browns in a row. And then I think he won it again the next year, and then they gave him a black belt. Gosh, Pedipano Cruz was there. There's a guy named Jefferson Moira that just destroyed everybody that no one even knows about up here. It's what it seems like. And he won the black belt division that year as well. Golly, Rafael Lovato was there. He's amazing too. And then all these probably 25 other dudes that you've seen, were enamored with, but they all live there. Back as as a purple belt in 03, and then I was still living in Lubbock. And then one of my buddies who introduced me to jiu-jitsu, or one of them helped me get in there, a guy named Tyler Bozzard, who owns jiu-jitsu schools in South Texas now. They were Gracie Baja schools now. I think he's on his own. I think it's called the Waves or Jiu-Jitsu. Moved to Dallas, and then briefly trained with a guy named Robert DeFranco, who's a wonderful guy. He's awesome. He's a black belt under Carlos Machado. For about six months, and then I transferred up to Carlos's. And then I guess I got my black belt in 2008, around there. And was it the end of 2009? I think it was the end of 2009. I was in the medical industry, developing marketing plans for multi and single specialty groups to find doctors. And I just remember looking around, and I was like, man, none of these guys, they all do well financially, but none of them looked overly happy. And I guess this was around 16 years ago, something like that. And I was like, wow, I don't want to do this for another 30, 40 years. So I talked to Carlos and a guy named Dan Beluska, who was helping him run a school. Dan's a great guy too. And I think he lives in Hungary now. And I said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to own a school and teach. So Carlos and Lindsay were super helpful for me. Love them, by the way. They're there. If you're ever in trouble, call Lindsay. By the way, she'll help you. She may tell you why you should never do that again on the ride back, but she's very helpful. If you ever need anybody to get anything done, call Lindsay. But Carlos is awesome. I was the first person he let officially start one of these schools from scratch and name it Carlos Machado Jiu-Jitsu. And there's when you start a school, there's bumps in this road. Like you didn't prepare for these bumps, and some things end up being unfair to one or the other. And every time I addressed those with Carlos, even if it was to his detriment, he was awesome about it. I was very lucky to find him. And then he gave me his brother-in-law, Evan Thompson, to start a school with. So we started this school. It was actually another guy I was supposed to work it with originally, and then it didn't work out. And Evan quickly stepped in, and we've been running this school for about 16 years now. It's been wonderful at times. People ask me if I like being self-employed, and I say when it's great, it's the best. And when it's bad, it's the worst, is what I tell them. But I've been really fortunate to have Evan Thompson as a business partner. He's a very solid individual who has taught me more about teaching kids than anyone. If I had a mentor for learning how to teach kids, I would say Evan is that person. As Carlos is my mentor for BJJ, Clay Pittman has been a mentor in this industry as well. But it was just a love for jiu-jitsu and then an escape. I think it was my coping mechanism for probably 20 years, dude. Like, I think I woke up from that stuff and was okay with it about 5 years ago. Like, that's how long it took me to realize that maybe I was going through something. But I love jiu-jitsu. It never gets old to me. I enjoyed every single day. You have to adjust to getting old, realize you're not 25, your body doesn't do the things, and realize I also teach really good jiu-jitsu. So I got students. One of my students named Corey, he says, boy, you train a bunch of snakes, you're going to get bit every now and then. And I said, you're right about that. Because some of these guys, you had to get over that. You're going to get submitted by your own student every now and then when they get really talented and you've taught them how to do everything very effectively and correctly. And you got to get over that. It took me a little bit to do that, but I've come to terms with it that I have some very talented students that are going to be great instructors should they choose to go down that road. Most of them are really wonderful people, by the way. I don't know if you want me to get in that, but I think jiu-jitsu weeds out the not great people faster than a lot of other hobbies do. Because you got to show a lot of kindness for people to want to train with you. I got someone in a submission where I could strangle them, but I choose to do it in the nicest way possible so they'll want to train with me again, over and over and over. So we started that, made it through COVID, thank God. And here we are. It's finally turned around. And by the way, that business kind of struggled through COVID up until literally the last year. And now it's doing better than it's ever done. And it took us this long to recover. I guess we're just very, very blessed and thankful is what I would say. And then I'm here talking to you now. I got about 10 black belts and you're one of them. Listen to you guys talk. So that's kind of how I got here.
That's I have to say is a great story. I'm glad to be part of that story. And this will be something I'll bring up later that coach helped me find the love of jujitsu again. And I've been trying to do my best to be in class, and I could tell you stories about coach beating me on a regular basis on the mats, and it forced me to get better. I didn't have a choice. The amount of times he has tapped me so many times, and you talk about that your black belts, some of them get better. Sometimes you get tapped. I will say you never let us, if we get you in something, you don't let us go to the next person after that. You was like another 10 minutes. Like we got to feel the
Yeah.
pain for tapping you after. We don't get to just walk away after that. So I do love that.
Yeah.
I wonder, you don't let us go after that. You be like, another round,
Yeah.
another round, and another round. So I love that we might get something, be like, man, we're happy about it, but you don't let us walk away happy after that. It feels like we're in the tournament after that. So I love that you've found that calling in jujitsu. I want to go back to that day you got your black belt. I remember before I even met you, I was looking at photos. I think this was on Facebook, and I think Carlos Machado put photos of like you and a group of other people had to actually roll with other black belts before you got that black belt. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was a wonderful day. It was me, Adam Trees, Ryan Trees, a guy named Mike Rose, and Shannon. Shane or Shannon. He was a good black belt too. He was training the guy. So it's funny. I got my black belt with 4 other dudes, and one of them had been training at the same school I've trained at, and I'd never met him because he always trained, and the dude'd been training like 18 years. He'd been training, I think, named Mike Rose. He may have been one of the original UFCs, by the way. I think he fought some MMA stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm Mike. And he was like, where do you train? He goes, here. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah, I always train in the day classes. And I never trained in a day class because I was always at work. I train in the evening classes. And Carlos did a great job of that. He had a bunch of his, previous, black belts and stuff like that. And there weren't many at the time. This was a while ago. Come in, roll with us. And then we taught kind of our favorite move. I've had y'all do this one time. Possibly I have in the past. And my favorite move, and a story about it, by the way, and I'll tell the story. Because everybody, you train, gosh, it takes easy 10 years to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu, really. And everybody, you're competing against your instructor every single day, and you're trying as hard as you can, and you just get squashed. And that's why I tell you guys, don't judge the success of a move off how it does against me. Because my defense of that move is probably better than your ability to apply it. So it was around the time I was a purple belt. I started getting a really good bat choke. And this is another reason why I keep training with you guys, if you get me. I was training with Carlos, and I somehow squirted around his guard, which didn't happen often as a purple belt. And then I just was like, well, it's now or never. So I hopped up and I went for my bat choke. And he hip scaped out, and somehow I pulled him up, reset it, and I subbed him. And I was like, my, did this just happen? This is nuts. And it was the highest. I was so excited. I was like, oh man, I've arrived. I'm here now. I'm good. And we were doing like a 5-minute match or some 4 minutes, something like that. And all I remember is I was as excited as I've ever been. and I looked at the clock, and it was, I think it said like 24 seconds or something like that. And I was like, this is going to be a wonderful day. And we touched hands. Like, I put my hand out. Swear to God, there was a puff of purple smoke or something like that. And all I knew is I was jerked over backwards and my arm was out and Carlos was armbarring me. And I looked back at the clock and it said, like, after I got up, it said like 19 seconds. And I was like, what happened? I was like, what just happened? How did it go from so great to so bad? And he was like, I had to get you back for that. And I was like, yeah, you did. That's nuts. So all I realized was that, oh, he's just been rolling just one step above me, to be a good instructor, for me, because there's no sense in him just mauling you every day. And I was like, oh, okay, there's definitely levels to this. And I just woke the sleeping bear is all I did. It taught me a lesson that day. I got over it really quickly and, obviously kept going. Yeah. So that's why I keep training with you guys. If you get me, I'm like, okay, but I'm going to raise the level up, because sometimes as a student, your student can get up a level and you don't know that they've improved. So you're training a little lower than them, or I do. You got to turn it back on and you got to take a mental note. Like, hey, this guy's got a new trick in his bag, so be prepared for that next time. And as an instructor, don't get your feelings hurt over that. Be happy that you can create jiu-jitsu players that are that effective and dangerous, at what you do. And when I got over that, my training was much more enjoyable to train with you guys, to realize, hey, I'm not going to beat you every time, and it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay for me. Now, I don't like losing, but y'all are good at jiu-jitsu. So I got over it. Hopefully Carlos did too. But after that, we all rolled, told our stories, most memorable stories. That one I just told you of me subbing Carlos and then him waking up and subbing me in 4 seconds. I told that one. And you just got to roll with a bunch of dudes that were instrumental in me getting a black belt under Carlos. And it was a special day. I need to get Ryan Trees up there. Ryan Trees has the best loop choke of any BJJ practitioner I've ever met. Like, nobody specializes in a loop choke except him, or he did anyways. I need to see where he's at, because his loop choke is like, you just don't believe it. I watched him consistently get people. I remember there were some UFC dudes fight in the UFC, the earlier UFCs that come in there. He would loop choke them, not like 5 times in a row, because he was a lower belt than them, but he'd whack them with it, and they were like, where did that come from? And then I'd be like, oh, someone probably should have told you about that. But it was a special day. Carlos did a wonderful job. And here I am 16, 17 years later. Yeah, he did a good job.
That's amazing. So Coach Mike, I'm loving these stories you're sharing. I mean, Carlos Machado is a very recognizable name. I'm not a BJJ practitioner, but I respect the art. There's so many good arts out there, and each have something to offer to the practitioner. You said something about, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that really caught my attention. I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit more. You mentioned that it kind of, weeds out the people very, very quickly. So I share that sentiment with the different martial arts that I've trained in. But I'd like to hear a little bit more. When you say weed out, are you thinking more in terms of it just requires a level of commitment, or just to be uncomfortable? Because there's a great level of determination that needs to go into any art that you train in. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to me is one of those very demanding arts. Can you touch a little bit more about that?
Yes. To sit there and train with someone, it's one thing when a referee or an outside entity determines the outcome of a match. And it's something different when you yourself have to have the humility to tell your opponent you win, to willingly do it over and over and over. And I think it breeds a lot of, I don't want to say fairness, but it is plain. People who can't play well with others don't seem to do very well in jiu-jitsu. I've been teaching kids I watched my business partner teach for about 10 years. I've been teaching for about 5 years, the kiddos. Even the children who can't give another human being their dues, like in a game of tag per se, or, can't willingly say, you got me. when they have problems, they're unwilling to say, you beat me fair and square. Those children, there seems to be a correlation between those children not being able to do that and them struggling in school and having friends. And I don't think there's anything worse than not having any friends. So the adults who can't wrap their mind around, it's okay for me to struggle. It's okay for me to fight you as hard as I can, win or lose, and still love you after that. Those adults seem to struggle as well. And I tell the kids, be happy that there's someone here to push you. If someone taps you out 5 times in a match, you should tell them thank you. Thank you for that lesson because they just taught you one. And be happy that they're there. Don't go home and shut yourself in a closet because you got your butt kicked on a jiu-jitsu match. Keep pushing. And there's something about this that I think breeds humans that are, I think they're like closer to being unbreakable, or they have a lot of grit that you can sit there and get smashed by another human who's trying to choke you out, and little kids are laughing as they're experiencing this. I think those children, they're going to go a long ways in jiu-jitsu. I love the other striking martial art. Like I love striking martial arts. I love wrestling. I don't think wrestling is or boxing are considered, they're promoted or sold as martial arts. I believe they are, and I believe they're super effective. But something about someone restraining you, it's kind of like a form of bullying, but you're just giggling through the whole deal if you think about it in a way. And when you can just not let it get to you, when you can let you fight someone as hard as you can and resist as hard as you can with all your strength, with all your speed, technique, energy, mental toughness, and you don't get the outcome that you're looking for and you still keep going. How do you beat people like that? Like in the long run, like what's going to happen to them? I just think they seem to play better with others, and there's nothing like, it's almost and that's what I want to create is humans that get up and almost hope that things go wrong so they can just prove again that they're unstoppable. And that's one of the things I think jiu-jitsu does. It creates the most mentally tough kids that I've ever seen. And that's what I want. This is a wonderful world. I think this is a wonderful country. It's not perfect. And I don't even know if I'd want it to be perfect because I think we'd have more problems in some sense. I don't know how they'd come up. But they just keep going. They have more grit. I think it builds grit in humans, and I think those are the humans that win in this world, or if not this country, is what I feel. I don't know if I elaborated too much.
I couldn't agree more.
I
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I hear so many undertones of the same things that I hear in my dojo and, in the ATA, American Taekwondo Association organization, and a lot of the kids building that mental toughness. How do you take a punch? How do you reel back from a kick to the face? I mean, those are some very serious jarring moments for kids and adults. So to hear you say that is very refreshing to me. Um, eh, Very curious. I mean, you touched on entrepreneurship, and I love the fact that you said that when it's great, it's great. When it's not, it's the worst thing ever. Because I've dabbled myself in entrepreneurship, but I think it'll be beneficial for the listeners to hear your perspective. Because it's not the same experience for everybody. The highs and the lows, yes, I think we can find some common ground there. But how do you, as both an instructor and leader in your organization, deal with the challenges while still putting a good product out there on the floor? Could you touch a little bit on that?
Boy, yes, I'd love to. One, it is very, very hard. And there's 2 things I'm going to tell you about this. And this actually stretched into my personal life also. Jiu-jitsu was my first love. I loved it. I still love it. And it was my number one priority too, which is awesome. And when you make it your job, that's awesome as well. But when you now you obtain a wife and children, your priorities are going to have to shift or something's going to break. because a wife and a children aren't going to be 2 or 3 forever and be happy about that. So this was my experience. When you take the thing that you love, they say if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. There's some truth to that. But when what you love is now your source of income and it's your main business, then it's not just what you love, it's also work. And when work isn't going great, now it affects the thing that you loved most and it can taint it. And like make it the thing that brought you so much peace and happiness, a level of stress and anxiety and an unenjoyable factor that, wow, you got to learn to deal with that. And I had to limit the amount of jiu-jitsu I had in my life to bring back my love for it. I was teaching until 9:30, 4 nights a week, and training on Saturdays for about 11 years, every single day in every class. And that's me in late 20s to 30s. Now I'm in my 40s. And then COVID happened. COVID was horrible. I mean, not disease. We're not going to get into the disease, or I don't want to get into the disease part of it. I'm talking about the business side of it, but it taught me a lot. It taught me that I need to spend time with my family. So now I teach Monday, Wednesdays, and I will back up on all the other days until my kids are out of this. I'm their baseball coach, and they do way amazing at that. But when it becomes your business, you kind of have to separate, put a barrier between your business and your life, and you need to be a present father. And that's the reason we had to change things. I didn't want to be an absent father. So now I teach 2 days, my business partner teach 2 days, and then we split any other emergencies that happen. It's kind of what we do, and it works out great. Mainly it works out because I have an amazing business partner. As far as my business, what made it effective was adding an after school program to it, which also added a boatload more stress and success. And then adding the child care, or getting a license as a school age program as well. That has been absurdly successful and stressful, mind you. But as far as my business, when you first start, you got to get up and work as hard as you can, as long as you can. And then you got to put it down. That's what I did. And we would do things, physical, intensive labor. I built the inside of my school because they wanted to charge me $50,000 to do it. This was like 12 years ago. And when $50,000 was a fair amount of money, it seems like it's not worth that much anymore for whatever reason. But you need to, in my opinion, you need to create safety zones for your personal life and your family so they can also thrive when the thing that you love can suck you in and you never want to leave. Or else you will create these imbalances where a wife she married you to be around you. She didn't marry you to have nobody there. That can encroach on your personal life, and then being a good father. So we put these barriers up. Like I'll go to like 4 tournaments a year, but I'm not going to every tournament in the state. There's one every weekend, by the way. So we just had to put barriers up between my family, being a good father, and this business. And it is really hard. If you're going to start a business in this country, get a lot of training first. Get a mentor. Find someone I got a degree from a university. I love it. My wife has 3, but find someone who's literally walking in your shoes, or the shoes you want to walk through, and then talk to that guy or girl. Don't get a 50,000 foot view of the business model. Find someone who's in the fight, and then probably replicate what they do. And I did that pretty well. And I got lucky probably because COVID was rough. And one of the things that made it through that was being a licensed school age program that helped us tremendously, by the way. I don't know if that answers your question as thoroughly, but barriers.
Yeah. No, it absolutely does. And, I will tell you that, COVID definitely took a toll even on my instructor school. He came out of it, okay on the other side of it. But I know that there were days and times when doing those video sessions and trying to make it, the technique, transfer that knowledge was not easy at all. And I myself, as an instructor, I mean, I struggled just to get myself in the frame. Like, how far back do you have to stand?
Yeah.
How close do you get, and it gets even worse with weapons training. Okay, here's a bow staff, here's a nunchuck, here's a sword. How do you, moving back and forth? It was a joke, in retrospect. But jiu-jitsu is a very, full contact sport. At least in taekwondo, I've got the ability to use a dummy on the other side
Yeah.
of the video, so. But anyhow, thank you for answering that question. I think, it's valuable to hear from entrepreneurs, especially, who's walked uh, from scratch effectively, like you have. And it's not easy. In corporate, there are a lot of people who imagine themselves as entrepreneurs, but, they get cold feet and it's not easy at all. Like, I've done it 3 times. My last one was a multinational, and I can tell you it was a lot of traveling to Brazil and the UK. And my family was wondering when am I going to be around for them? And I just had to figure out, okay, let me just get this thing smooth and steady before I can go ahead and start putting barriers like you did.
It's like entrepreneurs are the only people who will gripe about working 40 hours a week for someone else so they can work 80 for themselves. Like, it's nuts. It never turns off. Still, it doesn't turn off. The phones, the business phones, they're rolled to me every other week. And so you're taking calls. I remember when for school, I got like 55 inbound calls. I was like, man, this is great. But wow, I got nothing done today other than take phone calls. It is wonderful because it gives you freedom, but it can also suck the life out of you if you let it. And then especially, when the government's telling people don't go to this type of business, but your landlord's saying, hey, buddy, rent's due on the 1st. That was an experience. I think I got this gray hair, half of this gray hair because of that, by the way, possibly. That was very, very hard. That made me want to. That's the reason I work double hard now on even adding other streams of income and businesses to my life to make sure that it's going to be okay, because I didn't realize someone could come in and, we never experienced that before. I think the last one was like 100 years before that, right? The Spanish flu or something like that, where there was a kind of shutdown.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that is one thing I never thought I would have to deal with, was a virus instructing people not to come to businesses like mine. And getting through that was, there was a couple years where that business did not give us a paycheck. We did not take a paycheck from that business. But we still had to show up and work. So that was a humbling experience. But we made it through that. It's funny how the things we hate in this world that we think are going to break us, and when you make it through them, you go, that wasn't that bad. You're like, oh, no, it was fine. I can make it through anything. But those experiences mold us into the like unbreakable humans is what I call them. I'm like, man, you just can't. You may get them down, but they're not going to quit, and they're going to get back up on top. Well, I think jiu-jitsu gave me the mental fortitude to make it through that, along with a great business partner, just to keep going. And I think that's what jiu-jitsu and even jiu-jitsu has taught me. That's the part of why I'm probably successful at this business, and my other one is that I just keep going. You're not going to win every day, but you look up and after a year or two and you'll be like, oh, I had a lot of wins in there. Maybe they didn't happen right away, but they did happen. And I'm farther along towards the most successful life that I wanted to live. When I look back every year is what it seems like. So keep going. Teaches you to keep going.
Yeah, and I will say this, that to credit to you, the grit piece of it from martial arts, I think definitely speaks volumes about your ability to come back and stay in the fight and never give up. And I think that's the same theme in, at least from my experience, where I've seen other martial artists do exactly what you've described. So thank you for sharing that story. I think that's pretty incredible.
No worries, man. That's what it was, that and this poem called Persistence I learned in college that keeps me driving forward. by Calvin Coolidge. It's a great, yeah, that's what I keep living life.
I'll add something to that. That as far as jujitsu and what is given to me and coach, I don't know if I told you this, but I used to be a very quiet kid before jujitsu. I was very quiet. I had to get to know you, etc. Jujitsu gave me confidence. It gave me confidence. So now, once I go to work, etc., I tell people that work is easy compared to what I got to deal with on the mats. Somebody trying to break your arm, choke you out, etc. The rest of the day is pretty easy after that. So jujitsu, like you said, to me it breeds consistency. It breeds that point where you understand that there's this other level that you didn't know you had, and that you needed that pressure on the mats, etc., in order to get there. So jujitsu, like you said, breeds great people.
Are you there?
It does. It weeds out the bad and it breeds great people. And you see that also go into their professional life as well and their personal life. So coach, we talk about now we have black belts. You brought that up. We have about 10 black belts, including myself. We're gonna have some new ones coming up pretty soon. But I always wanted to ask that question. What was it like promoting your very first black belt? You trained, you've seen us come up from blue belt, purple, brown, and then you had your first group of black belts. What was that like for you?
Man, it takes so long. Man, jujitsu's a hard black belt. We don't give black belts out in just a year or two. It's a long. It was like I was like 10 years, 11 years of training. It was like, man, you've been working for something for a decade, and then it finally um culminates into this one event, and you're trying to make it as special as possible for those guys, because they've spent so much time, blood, sweat, and tears on that mat with you, that you want it to be memorable for them. And that's the thing that you talked about, what Carlos did for us to make it memorable. It was stressful at first, and a lot of those the first few belt ceremonies we did were stressful, but they all ended up wonderful. Um, and it was after I was very relieved, after the experience, to see that they went so smoothly and everybody was so happy, and that I could see the happiness on y'all's faces. It was very rewarding, stressful at first. It makes me very happy. One of the things I love about my black belts is that they all got a lot of grit. I'll tell you that. They stuck with something for a decade, and jujitsu's hard. They're all wonderful people. I've never seen them do questionable things to other humans. They're all wonderful to train with. You beat them, they beat you, whatever. They shake hands and they keep going, and they're there to make everyone better. I am really fortunate to have you guys as students. Evan and I are so lucky to have you guys, and to stay with us for a long time. It's hard to keep a client for over a decade, and we've kept a lot of them, and that's what I think can weed out even a lot of instructors. By the way, you talk about that. There are people who are good at jujitsu who should never be instructors. By the way, man, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should teach it. Doesn't mean you should ever be around anybody else's kids either. Being a kid, the hardest part of being a black belt, by the way, is being a kids instructor. Wow, man, you think you're doing the same thing? You're not. You're half like showman, like half entertainer, half martial arts instructor. It is really hard. But back to you guys, it made me feel very proud that been a part of your journeys, help you guys achieve your goals, and that you would want to get a black belt underneath me, and that you would stick with me for that long, because it is really, really hard to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think, I've got a degree at a college. It was significantly harder than that. My wife has a PhD, a master's and a PhD. I think it looked harder than that too. So overall, I would say I'm just very proud and grateful that you guys would stick with us for that long. That's what I would say.
I'm gonna add something to that I agree with you. It is very hard. Everybody always talks about Jiu-Jitsu is a gentle art. That is not true. In a sense, yes, but
Wow.
on the body, no, it is a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie, but it was an honor and still is that you are my professor, my coach. Like I said earlier, you helped me find a love of jujitsu again, coming from another gym and then coming to yours. It was the first gym I went to when looking for another home, and that was it. Like, once I came to your gym, I was done. I was like, "This is where I need to be." And like you said, to say you're gonna put 10, amount of years, etcetera, and then you get the black belt. I'll be honest, like, when you told me I was getting my black belt, and, I already had the hip injury, etcetera, man, I was so ready to have surgery. I was like, "I don't know if I could wait." My goal was always like, I wanna get my black belt under you, and then I would go into surgery. And at that brown belt level, I was dying. I was dying. I was like, I don't know if I could wait. And when you told me, I remember I went up there limping and all to get that black belt, and it was probably one of the best days of my life outside a couple of other things. But it's an honor to be one of your black belts. I know when we go in that gym and we see ourselves on that wall, and then other people who are training jujitsu get to see us and say, "Hey, that's a goal they have to eventually be on that wall as well." It's an honor to actually sit on that wall and get to see that on a regular basis and be one of your black belts. So I definitely have to say thank you for helping me find the love of jujitsu again.
Thank you. God, it's brought me, taking me through so much. I'm glad that it does it for you guys. And we do that so we could put a bunch of trophies and stuff on our walls, like medals and stuff like that, because I know a lot of gyms do that. I think the greatest thing I've accomplished as a jujitsu instructor, it's you guys. It's the 10 of you guys and the 3 or 4 more we're about to put on there. I think y'all are a greater accomplishment for me than all the medals we could put up there. Man, to stay, you realize you got to be a pretty steady person for someone to want to be around you even for 10 straight years, to train with you for straight years. You can't have an erratic personality that you can't be a different person every time they come in the door. That would get exhausting. So you guys, you 10, and there's going to be way more. But like right now, I would say my greatest accomplishment in martial arts is it's making other black belts in jujitsu. That is really hard. A decade. Y'all are 10 doctors. It takes longer to get a black belt in jujitsu than it does to get a PhD. So I've created 10 doctors in professors in jujitsu.
Mm,
So by far and away, y'all are my greatest accomplishment, is what I would
man.
say.
That means a lot, coach. And the funny thing, all 10 of us still train. All of us are still training.
Yeah.
No one got a black belt and say, "I'm done, I'm gonna go." All of us still train. We still love it the same way we did. And it was funny. The funny thing was when we were lower belts, we always said, "Man, eventually we're gonna be black belts in here." And start talking about all the other days we used to be in here as purples and blues and what happened through that. And now the funny thing is we do that. We'll sit in the gym, be like, "Man, I remember I was a purple belt in here," and you see someone else rolling the way you used to roll. I was like, "I did that. I used to do
Yep.
that." Or watching you roll with other black belts, or even with me, I'm like, "Man, even today, you'll still get me with some move." And I was like, "Man, I can bench press, coach, with ease, but I can't get them off me no matter what." So it's just the love of jujitsu. It's the love of the camaraderie, and just what you brought to us in our life, far as the mat is concerned, is a return on investment. I can't even tell you how much it is appreciated.
That's that conversation that you guys have where you talk to each other and you laugh with each other.
Mhm.
That's what I think keeps people coming back more than anything, honestly, at a certain point, is that like it makes you happy. Jujitsu, another thing it does is that I've noticed over and over and over is that it creates relationships with other full grown adults that are similar to the relationships you had with your best friend in second grade. Where yeah, you're adults, but it's, quasi professional. No, it's not professional, and it's just fun. And y'all are it's not like the water cooler talk at your corporate job. Y'all are laughing at sweating in each other's eyeballs. And it creates a more, I guess it speeds up the rate that it takes to become a true friend with another human, is what it seems like. And because I look up all the time, because you become friends with them on Facebook, and you see that person's only 35 years old, and they've only been trained at your school for 2 years. They had a total life before they trained jiu-jitsu. And they post something on Facebook, and there's 20 comments, and 15 of them are from people that they train jiu-jitsu with. You're like, it just creates a friendship that you can't get anywhere else, is what it seems like. And I love working out, like the gym. I think as we get older, we need to lift weights. But you can go in there and work out in the gym and not talk to another human, and get a good workout. But in jiu-jitsu, you have to communicate with another human and interact with them very closely, um, for 5 minutes at a time, and maintain a healthy relationship with them. It's nuts. I think I tell people jujitsu is so much cheaper than therapy. Whatever you're going through, try that first. And it's good for weight loss.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. It'll
Mhm.
probably, I think, especially dudes, men need to express, I'm not saying violence, but combat, and it helps us relax a little bit, I think. Not to mention knowing that you could defend yourself very well should you be put in that situation. That's a bonus, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
An
I
absolute
agree
bonus.
with that. I agree. And coach, it has been great having you on our podcast. We have learned so much about you and your background and what got you started. And there's always one question I ask everybody who comes on here, and I always ask, what's your theme music? What's that music that you play in the truck, going to the gym, getting ready to instruct and teach us? What's that song that you're always playing to get you ready?
There's so I love all types of music, but some of them are horrible to roll jujitsu. So I like just the band Volbeat, for training jujitsu too. I like them, and I like Rage Against the Machine, the bomb track. That gets me excited to train jujitsu. So I would go with one of that band, but either one of those bands. And Warriors Calls, nice. Bomb track with by Rage Against the Machine. I like that too. So either one of those, and that'll probably get me there. I grew up in the '90s, so that's why I like them. Although
Yeah.
Volbeat was more late 2000s, possibly. Yep, that's who I'm going to go with. I love country
Nope.
music too, but it's horrible to train jujitsu to. Like, oh God, it's the worst. Horrible, horrible. I like oldies. That's horrible to train jujitsu too. '80s music, I play that for the kids. They're happy. But when adults come on, you listen to something love song by REO Speedwagon, and it's going to be a horrible roll. So I'm going with one of them, like some type of rock. That's what I would go with. Yeah.
That is great. That is great. I love that, coach. I love that. So I have to say again, thank you for joining us and taking the time to be on Black Belts and Boardrooms. It has been very special. I know, like I said, I was very excited to have you on, to have my professor, my coach on here. I couldn't stop telling Amir about it, told the fiance about it, but thank you for taking the time. And
Awesome.
for our Black Belts and Boardrooms listeners, we will see you on the next one.
Thank you.